Hello and welcome back, everybody, today to another edition of the Easy Peasy Books podcast. And today I have a brilliant friend and colleague and talk voice and author in the house today. And we actually had the joy and pleasure of actually meeting in person when I was in the UK, which is like now, I don't know, 2 years ago. But we had a fabulous day and day at the beach, which was something that was meaningful to both of us. But anyways, I digress. Sarah Burgess, before we get stuck in today, can you please tell people who you are and what you do? And then we're going to talk about your author journey.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, it was so good to meet, and that day on the beach was just such a good day, wasn't it? And having pasties and all of that, it was really nice to meet. So thank you very much for asking me on. I am a career coach, so I've been freelance for 23 years now, which has flown by. So that's kind of my day job, really, is that I help people who are feeling a bit stuck. I work with anyone from student to CEO who just really is looking for that next role or kind of getting started in their career. Alongside that, I am a real LinkedIn kind of nerd, I guess. So I really love how to use technology to kind of get to that next place. So lots of my coaching is around using LinkedIn to get to that next place.
Brilliant.
So that's basically me.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. So let's talk about your new book. And it's very unique in that it wasn't enough to do one book. You had to do a whole series. So you're launching a series, and it's more than a book. It's a workbook, and it's very unique, and it's very targeted for a specific target market. And so, Sarah, why don't you just go ahead and fill us in on what all this is, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so I've been wanting to do something specifically for students for quite a long time. So as I just said, I do work with students, but invariably they don't want to speak, or it's just quite difficult to get that number of student clients. So I wanted to do something that's a bit more accessible. So I kind of had the idea of a book, which I've been mulling over for a while. And it's partly because when it goes back to when I was in sixth form at my school, I was one of the only ones who didn't go to university, and I never had any desire to go, but I felt quite victimized almost at school. But the teachers made me and my friends stand up because we weren't applying to university and all of this stuff. It's really bad when I look back at it. And my own kids, they struggled with what to do at key stages in education. So at 16 and 18, they just didn't know what to do next. They didn't want to follow the traditional routes. And the more that I spoke to my clients, the more they told me that their children were in the same sort of position. So that was kind of how I got the idea. I thought about it for a while. And then as a sort of a by point, I'm still am in actually a writing community, and there was a challenge to write this 300-word story. So I based mine on a student who was having panic attacks, didn't know what to do next, had lots of pressure, and it went down really well when I posted it on LinkedIn. I had lots of parents contacting me to say that's exactly what my child's going through, or actually that is what I went through. So there seemed to be quite a lot of people that related to it. So that sort of gave me a bit of a confidence that there was a need. And then I was at a music event chatting to a daughter of a friend who's a graphic artist. So she does cartoons, magazine strips, that sort of thing. So I just said to her, if I gave you this 300-word story, do you think you could make a cartoon? So she said yes. And also I paid her for that. And then the idea was I'm going to incorporate it into a book. So it's lots of practical exercises. It's a physical book. So it's an A4 landscape book. So it's designed to be written in. So it is an actual workbook. Lots of the exercises that I use with career coaching clients of all ages and career stages, because they're pretty universal. So that was kind of the idea, and just little things that have kind of irritated me about how education has worked. I've tried to implement those. So, I think physically writing things is a really good way of getting things into your brain. So that's how it all came about. So my first one is called 16 Unstuck. So this is what it looks like.
Great.
As you can see, it's A4 landscape. It starts with the cartoon, and then it kind of goes through a journey of sort of reflection and trying to block out external voices, that kind of thing. So 16 in the UK, or in England anyway, is for GCSEs. But I've not specifically mentioned the type of qualifications, because I wanted to keep it general enough that it would appeal kind of globally, really. So any student that's kind of going through these thoughts leading up to that key stage decision, then that's kind of the idea. And then the next one, as you said, 18 and Stuck, so similar. And then the final one for now is Out of Uni and Stuck. So they all follow the same sort of format. They've got slightly different exercises. So that's my series.
I love it. I love it. So, when you came to so can you just tell us what the dimensions are? Because you mentioned, was it A4? What was the size?
Yeah, so A4 landscape. So basically the paper that comes out of a printer, that size.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So you have gone a different way of selling your books. Most people, most people that come on the show are just like, they just go on to Amazon, they put their book
Yes.
on Amazon, and then they turn it into an ebook, or maybe they just do the paperback.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
the most traditional route. Now you are a little bit different in that you're currently you're not on Amazon. I don't know what your future plans are, but you're doing it through your website. So can
Yeah.
you kind of walk us through the decision to
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah. So I would say I didn't do a huge amount of research before I got started in kind of getting things published, which it's kind of two ways of looking at it. In hindsight, maybe I should have done, but actually I think that would have restricted my thinking, because I was really clear that I wanted it in this format because it just lends itself so well, I think, to like the cartoon. I'll just show you. So this is like the cartoons that go through it. So I think any smaller than that or a different dimension wouldn't have worked as well. So I was really clear that was the size. So I kind of worked through, got them all printed and published. So I went down the self-publishing route, mainly because when you look into publishing, it's actually really hard to find a publisher that will take you on, firstly. But secondly, the category it's not a business book because it's for students. It's not an education book because it's not linked to the curriculum exactly. So it was hard to find a category, therefore it was hard to find a publisher. So kind of self-publishing just seemed to be the way to go. But yeah, once I had them printed, I clicked on the button to say, oh yeah, global distribution to Amazon. I've got ISBN numbers, which I was really excited about because that kind of made it feel like it's a proper book. And then it comes back to say, oh no, you can't globally distribute an A4 landscape book. Right, okay, why is that? And it's because bookshops and Amazon won't stock them. So bookshops, because they won't fit on the shelves. And Amazon, I guess, distribution wise, they don't want to do anything that a bookshop wouldn't stock. So I've got a few ideas to work around that at the moment. So it will be on Amazon. I've looked at kind of reformatting it, and one idea I've had is to get it bound across the top rather than down the side, because then you could say it's a portrait book. So I'm working. I'm doing lots of work around at the moment, which I've really enjoyed. Actually, it's kind of taken me back to my business analysis days where I had a problem, got to solve it. So that's the plan. So I'm kind of doing a bit of a soft launch at the moment. So just people that are interested. So I've sold a few copies, which is great, but there is a website that goes alongside it, and that is being built at the moment. So I'm waiting for an update from so Ellie, who does the illustrations, and then Dan, who builds my website. So they've been having meetings about this I haven't been included in, which is just really strange. I've never had this. I've been self-employed, as I said, for 23 years. So people talking about one of my projects without being there has been weird, but pretty cool as well. So so I'm waiting to find out when that goes live, or when that's ready to go live, because there's QR codes in the book that will take you on to further research information, because I'm conscious that stuff around these choices changes quite a lot. So I've tried to keep the book in such a way that's quite static. So they're universal exercises that you could do at any point in your career, but the reference information that you need, you'll kind of click on the QR code, get taken to my website, and then you can read a bit more about whatever it is.
And
that's ready, bigger launch.
That's good. That's great. And that's really important thing is the QR code. I know more and more authors especially self-published authors, are using QR codes in their book because it's just so easy. It's just so easy. But you have to really be very intentional about where that will go. And, and you really have to think it through, because if you say, oh, I'll just have it go here.
Yeah.
Well, then is that here going to change, because it's
Yeah.
like, once that book is out there, I was reading a book actually last night, and there was a link in the book, wasn't even a QR code. It was just a link, and it went to a 404.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
thought,
Yeah.
did the author think that through? That, how long will this be a live link? Because I was reading it on a Kindle. So it's like I tapped it and it was like went to a 404. Now,
Yeah.
yes, I could go and probably do a Google search, but it's not always going to work.
No, it's frustrating, isn't it? So and again, this is another learning point. So I didn't know this, but you can have QR codes where you can change the destination afterwards. So that's
Mm,
what I've gone for. I've gone for a QR code where I can then go in and change it. So, if at some point in the future, if these go down well, then I've got plans for kind of, like career break and Stark, and retired and Stark, and after maternity leave and Stark. So there's lots that could be done in this, but obviously one QR code won't work for all of those. So I wanted
right.
something that I could update if I needed to. So that's really great. I didn't know that you could do that, but I found a site that you can redirect the QR code. So for now it goes to my generic homepage, but that
Right.
will change as soon as the website's up and running.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. That's good. That's good. And it really, it almost makes you want to know. And I don't know the answer to this, but it's almost like it feels like we should go own our QR codes.
Yeah.
Like it's like
Yeah.
you think about it, and it's like right now it's very, very easy to make QR codes.
Yes.
There's Canva. You can use
Yeah.
Canva. You can use
Yeah.
QR code monkey or something. I've
Yes.
used that for a lock screen on my phone, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But it makes you think maybe we should be owning our QR code, especially like you said, if it's, I think the term is dynamic QR code, but
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the phrase. But wouldn't it be nice if you could lock it in and say, okay, I'm going to buy a pack of 10 and
Yeah.
these QR codes are mine. They'll never,
Yeah.
because you're like, well, what if what if Canva decides, well, we're not doing that QR code anymore? And it's like, are my QR codes still going to work? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like a lot to think about. And, nobody kind of prepares you for all the learning that you
No.
have to do, which kind of leads me into another question, Sarah.
Mm.
What did you kind of learn along the way that you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I didn't know?
Yeah. I mean, so things like bleed margins on books. So I've literally done everything myself, which again, other people have been like, well, why didn't you get someone? Well, I paid a proofreader. So yes, I thought that was really important. So proofread and edited. That was great. But yeah, so I've used Canva to create the book, and then when I got it published the first time, there was like these little weird green lines. So actually, it's probably a bit, maybe it's a bit boring, but on here you can see there's just a slight white line at the edge of the page. So I was trying to work out why that was, and it turns out you need to put in extra space for bleed margin. So when I've got the next one done, there's no white lines. So I've been learning lots of kind of quite technical stuff along the way. Which I've really loved. Like I said, it takes me back to sort of business analysis days, but actually as well, it's made me think I'm more creative than I ever thought I was. So, which has been good as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in your book, in your series, you have different characters.
Yes.
And so can you kind of tell us a little bit about that? And are they the readers, or are they, is it one character per book? Do they have anything to do with each other? Or sort of how did you even come up with that idea of having that?
Yeah. So there's one character for each book. So we've got Zed for the 16 and Stark. And so that was related back to what I said about the short story for 300 characters. So I didn't give him a name in the story. I just talked through the general feelings that a lot of my kids' friends were talking about. So just that feeling of so many people giving them ideas about what they should do next, so they couldn't hear themselves think, and almost, in some cases having panic attacks, so worried that what was going to happen if they didn't get the grades, and what if they'd chosen the wrong things to do next. So this just overwhelming feeling of stress. And I think still off the back of the pandemic, I think this age group have really got it hard, because they weren't in school for a lot of the time. They were homeschooled. They didn't have that kind of social interaction. So I've definitely noticed recently that quite a lot of students are more anxious about kind of speaking to people. So that was kind of the idea, to get across that feeling of actually everyone's going through this kind of pressure and stress, but it will be okay in the end. Mm. So that's kind of the message throughout. So yeah, so Zed is the first character. The second character is called Lucy in the 18, and with her, she's a really bright student, but she doesn't think she's maybe picked the right thing, and her boyfriend's quite dependent on her. So it's quite amazing how much you can get into a 300-word story, actually. And then the last one, Finn, is university, and he knows that he hasn't worked hard enough, and he's not going to get a very good degree, and maybe he should have worked a bit harder, and maybe he should have changed courses. So it's trying to just pick up themes that students relate to. It might not be them, but it might be their friends. So that's the idea. So the kind of the front of each book is that story, and then as we go through, I kind of refer to the characters every now and then with like examples and things like that. But really, I guess it's like a hook, really, to try to get people to relate at the beginning.
I like that. And I think that it always helps if you can kind of personalize things, and storytelling is key, because we remember stories, they speak to us, and it allows, that's kind of like how I feel, you can identify with the character. Now, because you're calling them workbooks, are they actually like writing in them, or
they are. Yeah. So again, if I just random page. So this exercise is called More Voices. So it's all about all of those voices. So whether it's your friends, whether it's your parents, whether it's the teachers telling you what they think you should do next, often these people have got your best intentions at heart, but it kind of clouds your own thinking. So that particular exercise is about writing down all of those things that people are telling you, and then kind of just going through and ticking, do I like that idea? Do I not like that idea? Am I going to explore it? Am I going to leave it? Am I going to come back to it later? So I just think getting things down on paper gets it out of your head sometimes. So that's kind of the idea of the book, that it is your own book, that's yours. You use it when you want to, you can work through it sequentially, and hopefully by the end of the book you'll have some clear ideas of what you're going to do if you get the grades you want, what you're going to do if you don't get those grades. And was
that hard to figure out how to set that up in the book? Because I would think that you'd have to be like, do I make it a full page? Do I make individual exercises? Was that a challenge for you, or did you just like, no, I see it. I see exactly how it should go?
Yeah, I think I could see it. So it starts off in a couple of the books with something called a career line, which is like literally a line with different ages, and the idea is you go through and you plot highs and lows. So that one took up the whole page, and I think then that I saw that one, I thought, actually, I think each exercise needs its own page, and then we'll have another page where people can then see an example, and then the next page where they actually go through and do it. So yeah, I think that was quite clear in my head, and I just want it to be a decent size so that you haven't got to write really small. And there's copies of the exercises on the website as well. So if if you've got hundreds of ideas, you can just download some more pages.
That's good. That's good. And I know I personally hate to write in a book. So there's always those people like me that are like, I would just like the companion guide where I can just write it out on a, white
that's
piece
true.
of paper and, and deal with it, because it's like, you're scared that like, well, what if, just sometimes we don't want to pour ourselves onto a book, but also too, maybe we feel like we might come back and change, so sometimes the answer I would put in today and the answer in a year from now could be totally different.
That's true. Yeah. And I think that first exercise, the career line, I do say to people, actually, this one's quite good to kind of make a start and then come back to it a few days later and add and take away things, because I think once you start thinking about an exercise, particularly when you've started to write it down, you just have it there in the back of your mind, and then all of a sudden an idea will pop up and you'll think, actually, I need to go put that down. So yeah, it's kind of a living exercise, really, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely. Now, let me ask you, in terms of, you are obviously, on LinkedIn. So I'm just thinking with the marketing hat. You're on LinkedIn. You're a top voice, by the way. Congratulations on
Thank you.
being a top voice. You're
Thank
always
you very
great.
much.
And so when you think about your marketing, are you marketing on LinkedIn and other channels as well, exclusively on LinkedIn because that's majority of where you've built your social following? How are you marketing your book?
Yeah, so for now, as I said, it's very much a kind of a soft kind of launch. So I am writing the occasional post about it and mention it. I think in my head, I'm thinking LinkedIn is going to be more parents and maybe kind of school employees, that kind of thing. So I have got an Instagram page set up, I've got a Facebook page set up, and I've got a TikTok page set up, but I've not done very much. So Instagram and Facebook, I've put a couple of posts on. TikTok, I've done nothing yet. But I'm aware I need to do things in a slightly different way depending on the audience. So I'm thinking TikTok's going to be much more for the students themselves. So I plan to record just kind of short videos, maybe about, have you ever thought about doing this kind of thing, that kind of thing. So kind of talking about possible careers. Don't want to be an extra voice in people's head, obviously. But, just giving people something to think about. So, yeah, I've got a bit of a strategy, but you know what it's like with everything, trying to find time to pin everything down is pretty tricky. But Paul, my husband, has got a bit more free time at the moment because he works in social media and his work has finished. So he's only got a couple of days work at the moment. So he's going to kind of help me with the whole Instagram, Facebook positioning, because that's what he does for his day job. So it makes sense to kind of use that.
Brilliant. And I love Paul. I met Paul.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. And Bella, your little dog.
Yes.
So it's so good. So if you think about like sort of your long-term vision and if your book's out there, what would sort of be the end goal for you? Do you I'm all of a sudden thinking like, wow, wouldn't it be awesome? Like if you were like, a school booked you or, you were part of a curriculum, to be honest with you, it's like mental health, like, all these things that our young people are going through. You would think that it would be nice if schools would get in. So can you, what's a vision that you would have for that?
So that is the vision. I would love to be, get the books into the school. So, kind of, selling a bunch for a whole year group, maybe going in and running sessions on kind of one of the exercises, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I'd really love to do. So get into schools, universities, talk to them about the kind of the concept of the book, have all the students have their own copy, and then work through some exercises, but kind of in a workshop, collaborative kind of way, where maybe I talk through the exercise, then they work through them, and I'm just kind of floating around. So, but interesting you said about mental health, because I have also got that kind of thing in here as well. So you can see this is like an exercise where you draw around the hand. So it's like I've got a few sort of meditation type exercises in there. So if you're feeling kind of overloaded, then have a go at this exercise and it will help to hopefully clear your mind. So I've tried to focus on that mental health aspect a bit as well. So I'm not a qualified mental health expert or anything like that. But again, seeing what my kids went through, anything that's a bit of a distraction sometimes can be really helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have to ask you, so sort of like what's next for you? So there's a lot with this whole series, getting everything, and then, how you got your workarounds and stuff like that. Sort of what's sort of next for you now that you've dipped the toe in the author water?
Yeah, so I guess the immediate next is trying to, as soon as the website's ready, trying to get appointments with schools, and trying to kind of sell them more. I've had so many people saying, "Oh, I need like a mid-50s Unstuck." So I have got literally a whole list of titles. I bought 10 ISBN numbers at the time because it was a better deal to buy 10. So the plan for all of those books, that would be amazing. If people do buy them, that's the scary thing, isn't it? Once you've written a book, imposter syndrome is like nothing I've ever known before. I have to say, I don't normally suffer from that, but I posted out the first copies last weekend, and like putting them, in the mailbox was a bit like, oh, someone's actually going to open this now, they've paid for it. So it's a bit scary, but yeah, so that's the plan, more of those. And then, I've still got kind of in the back of my mind the career stories series that I ran. I would really like to get all of those kind of up into a book, which you suggested to me actually a while ago, didn't you? So
Yes.
whether that's just the transcripts or whether I think a bit more about structure in a kind of a more advice kind of way. So there's that. And a book on LinkedIn would be great. So I think this is the thing, isn't it? Once you've started, you can just see lots of other possibilities.
Absolutely. And, I kind of see a tie, between the career stories and in your whole series, because to be honest with you, what was always so enlightening about that series when you were doing them, and I was one of the people that came on your show and talked, was listening to how people change over the course of their career. And it feels like that busts the myth that we all just like, oh, we're sitting in class one day when we're 14 and we say, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer, and that we become a lawyer and that's the end of it. And yet it seems that we don't have permission to, well, I think I'll be a bookshop owner, and no, I'll be a librarian, and no, I'll actually go be a cab driver. It's like we grow and we change, and there's this feeling that then we're like we're imposters because we've never committed to something. But in essence, maybe everything we do, we learn from, and it helps us get to the next career. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But for some reason, we feel it is a bad thing. And that's what I loved about your career stories, was every time I would come and I would listen to whoever you were interviewing, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that they did this, this, and this, and they here, and here.
Yeah, exactly. I think I interviewed about 70 people, and I would say out of all of them, there's only one that has worked in a truly hierarchical way up the system, stayed in the same sector. Everyone else has moved around, different sectors, different jobs. And I think, people do think, you've got to choose a career. I think particularly students, you need to choose a career and then stick to it. But, some of the best advice from those sessions, because I always asked people what advice they would give to students, was just do something. Don't worry too much about what it is, because you'll learn from it. You'll know what you like, what you don't like. Don't get hung up on that first job, because, things change. You might, have always dreamed to be like a lawyer, like you say, but then actually you hate the reality of it.
Exactly. And it's funny because that was actually my first dream, was when I was in high school, I was going to be a lawyer. And I, of course, did not fulfill that at all. But what was interesting was that later on, I learned that I was living in Toronto, Canada at the time. If I had actually pursued that dream, I would never have traveled and lived. Like now I live in Texas in the United States. Like that's not a career where you can pick up and move all over the place. Whereas being a book coach, I can live anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. So sometimes, we don't even know what we don't know with like, if I chose that, what are the ramifications? Because I have this passion to travel, but now I have a job and I run a restaurant. I can't travel anywhere because I run this restaurant. So, it's very, very interesting. So I love this. And I love that you're providing through your workbook series, this idea of getting unstuck. Because that seems to be, like if I had to say, what's Sarah Burgess's message? What's her mission in life? You help people get unstuck in every sense of the word. And so that's so good, because, kind of like, when you had your LinkedIn banner, I don't know if you still do, but you had like running and moving forward. And that's the opposite of getting unstuck, like being stuck is moving forward.
Moving forward,
so
definitely.
what a gift that you give to the world. So
thank you. So as well as the career stories thing, I would also like to do, I would just really like creating content, I have to say, more than I ever realized I would. So I have got a digital course for students about using LinkedIn. So I'd like to develop more courses, like interview skills, CV, resume writing, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it just depends if I sell enough books to be able to fund me to do that, because I need some money.
I know, I know, I know. And I think students in LinkedIn, I haven't seen that book out there. So,
Mm,
that's one that, like, there's a
yeah,
lot of books there's a lot of really, really good books out there on
yes,
using LinkedIn, and, many, many, many out there. But I have
yeah,
not seen one for students. So
yeah,
that would actually be very unique and
yeah,
good,
yeah,
good niche, good niche.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of our 30 minutes. This has been a brilliant chat.
Thank
Always
you.
goes way too fast, but
It does, yes.
thank you for sharing everything that you have today, Sarah, and sharing your journey with us, because it's just, we learn so much, and it's just great to pass on that knowledge, and I wish you all the success as you're launching this new workbook. It's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you so
Okay.
much for inviting me. It's been great to chat.
Okay, great. Okay, bye everybody, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.